happy 25th day of Pride Month.
Hi, everybody.
We're back again, and today we're continuing with our discussion about asexuality. We started 2 days ago with a reading from my soon-to-be launched Sex with God devotional. It's coming out in July. And that was about the topic of asexuality. Yesterday we did a Q&A with me because I am asexual. And today we're finishing up on that topic with questions for my Dolce here about what it's like to be a spouse of someone or a partner with someone who is asexual. Normally, they always like to have me in the foreground.
I do.
They like to push me into the limelight, but because Dolce is the focus of our topic today, I kind of made them sit in front, which
she did.
You probably don't like a whole
I don't
lot.
like it.
Doesn't like it. Nevertheless.
But here I am.
So we're going to jump right into the questions.
All
if
right.
you end up having some while we're chatting, feel free to put it in the comments and we'll check them out.
Okay.
So here we go. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Fire away.
What was your initial reaction when you realized I was asexual?
Well, I think I always knew. I think at first it's when you first hear that news and it's a definite, there's kind of a what's it going to do to me shock thing, and you got to get over that and figure out what it does for in the relationship altogether. So I think I might have been like a little concerned when the reality of the word and the realization of what it was came to be, even though I think I knew all along.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Were you surprised?
No, because I knew. No, I don't think I was surprised. Mm-mm.
Did you take it personally?
I think it's hard not to. I think a lot of people do, and I think there was like this brief second of me thinking, is it me? Is it something I did wrong? But I think that when you take you out of the picture and you realize that, then you start to accept what it is and enter into the reality of the situation. So I think at first, for a very brief second, I wondered if I wasn't enough or I wasn't doing the right things or I was pushing something. But as I look back on it, I always knew. So.
And you know now it wasn't.
Yeah, I know it wasn't.
Absolutely. How has the understanding changed your relationship, our relationship?
I think it's grown it. I think honesty always makes a relationship better. And I think the more you know somebody, the better your relationship becomes. Now we know the whys, the who's, and the whats, and we just got to communicate how we enter into that part of our relationship the best way for both of us.
What are the biggest fears partners or spouses of asexuals have?
Gosh, when Suzanne first, well, she's always said it. She said it for years. But when she said it and I believed it, and I decided to enter into the reality and I started to research things, I saw a lot of people really afraid to be intimate and vulnerable with someone who is asexual. So I think that a lot of people think that an asexual can't return or give you back that intimacy, and that's wrong. That's false. And I think a lot of people think that they're undesirable. They're the cause of it. That the person is just using it as an excuse. I think you really need to read up on it and talk to your partner to figure out the reality of what it is.
What are the biggest challenges?
Well, I think getting over the fear to communicate is a big challenge for me. I think it's getting easier, and I think that you're really easy to communicate with, but because I love Suzanne so much, I don't want to hurt her, and I want her to be able to fully be who she is, but I can't understand it, because it's not who I am. I'm a sexual person, she's asexual. It'd be like me knowing what it was to have a penis when I don't have a penis. It doesn't make sense for me to expect myself to completely understand it. So communication is key. But there is this fear of hurting her and not entering into that communication. So I think that has been a challenge, but that challenge seems to be diminishing. The more we talk about it, the easier it gets.
Do you think there are misunderstandings which create problems between asexuals and allosexuals who are partnered? Allosexual is the term for people who do have sexual attraction.
Hmm.
So those are, it's kind of like cisgender people are people who are, their gender is the one that they were assigned at birth. Allosexuals are people who do have sexual attraction. So I'll reread the question now that I interjected all that. Do you think there are misunderstandings which create problems between asexuals and allosexuals who are partnered?
Gosh, there could be a long list. I mean, I think some people think it's one or the other's fault, and that creates a misunderstanding. I think the lack of communication can create a misunderstanding. I think research helps out with the best. Mm-hmm. So I think there are some. I just think that they're particular to the people and what part of the gender spectrum, the sexual spectrum, the asexual is on. I mean, there are some people who are repulsed, but not everyone is repulsed. So if your partner tells you I'm asexual and you think that that means they're repulsed by sex, you really have to communicate, because not every asexual does not want to have sex. Is that good?
Yeah, I think that raises a good point. I was doing a little bit of reading today in preparation for this conversation, and there certainly are some asexuals who do not want to have sex, and that requires a lot more navigation, not more, but probably harder navigation about how to move forward and have a mutually happy relationship. I think that it makes the demand even more extreme for communication.
Right.
Do you ever feel like you're missing something?
No. And I'll say it again, no. I think at first there was a brief moment I was afraid I would, that the intimacy would stop or the physical relationship would cease. So I think at first there was a little bit of fear that I could miss out on something in the future. But no, not anymore. Now that we've talked about it and we're working through it and I'm learning more about it, it's just about communication and really talking through all of it. So I don't think that I'm missing anything. I actually think that my relationship with you, physical and emotionally and spiritually, is better. I have a better relationship with you. So missing something, no.
I was going to say something, and then your sweetness blew it right out of my mind about that. I think that we're super blessed because our communication, that seems to be the word that we're repeating over and over again, is so good anyway, and that we both are focused on problem solving.
Right.
When issues come up in our relationship, where we are not focused on being right or making sure someone else is wrong, we're really blessed in that way, and it's something we work on. But I also think it's part of it is because of the pairing of our personalities, the pairing of our souls, and which I think points out that the need, that would be the optimal model for all relationships, is if you don't have that, if you want to focus on problem solving and the other person wants to focus on blame, that's going to make it hard for life in general, because there's always problems. So if you're not partnered yet and you're looking for someone, look for that. Look for a problem solver. So I think we're pretty blessed in that, because this is this issue, we don't tend to be people who harbor stuff.
Right.
We work on it together, and we approach it as something to be dealt with together.
Well,
so we're blessed.
I also think we're very blessed that we came together at the age that we did.
That's true.
I think there's more knowledge and hopefully more wisdom in us, and that we want to enter into a successful relationship. It's not about me, it's about us. It's not about her, it's about us. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true. What do you think about the idea of seeking sex outside marriage for the partners of asexuals?
No. Not for us, not for me. That's not something I believe in. I think that a physical relationship, sexual relationship, is the most vulnerable and the most intimate you can be with someone. And I think that if you're missing on that intimacy and that vulnerability, you don't go share it with somebody else. You work on making it better. There are other ways to be intimate. There are other ways to be vulnerable. I think that that's what you have to work on. You don't just throw the baby out with the bathwater and go have that kind of relationship with somebody else. In my opinion, that is not for us. That's not for me. I don't believe in it.
And it's tricky because I am, I don't want to say I'm willing to have sex. I'm not opposed to sex. I enjoy sex when it's happening. I just don't have sexual attraction. Whereas some people really don't want to have sex, and I can only imagine the difficulty that must introduce in people's lives. So I have great sympathy for that, and I'm grateful that it's not something that we have to deal with. However, I would have to think it's a difficult situation, which may not be a solution. I don't know. That's a rough one. Definitely not for us.
No.
Is it hard to talk about this with me?
It gets easier every single time. There are times when I'm really scared that something's going to hurt her, and I think it would hurt you more if I didn't talk to you than talk to you about it. I love her so much that I don't want her to not be who she is because it affects me, but it does affect me. We have to talk about it. It has to be communicated. We have to come to, some people talk about asexuals that they will compromise and have sex with you. I don't like the word compromise. I think it's a decision to be physically intimate with you, even though it's not something they would initiate or they might desire, but they decide to do it. I mean, that's even a bigger gift to you than if they just, were like, oh, well, I'm just going to do it, and it doesn't become anything. But when they talk to you about it and they say, okay, this is my decision, I think when you talk and you communicate, you realize, do you want to be with me intimately or not? And that's a really important thing for people who are sexual and asexual to have in their communication. What is this? Do we want to be intimate? How are we going to be intimate? So I think that in the beginning, the question was it hard to talk to you? I think it was. I think it's getting a lot easier. And I think there are times that it's going to be difficult. And one time I told Suzanne, I said, talking about this is like going through a space of fog, that I know once I get through the fog, everything will be clear, but I don't want to go through that foggy part when I can't see. So it's a little bit uncomfortable sometimes, but it's always worth it.
This is something we didn't talk about yesterday, and it's kind of hard to, it's territory which is difficult to traverse for us, because we do view sexuality as sacred. And we do believe and sort of practice that God is part of it, and God is at the center of it. That human sexuality is an intensely it's an intensely integral part of God's design for us, and that God is there in it in a very profound way. And so that makes it hard for us to talk about, our sex life, because it is so sacred. But so one question that wasn't on here, but that I'm wondering if, and we didn't talk about yesterday, is that asexuals, being with an asexual doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to be sleeping with someone who lies there like a board. It doesn't mean that they wouldn't want to enter into the giving and receiving of pleasure, and it doesn't mean that they would be bad at it. In some ways, it's possible that the fact that they are not as connected to it viscerally, that they might be able to give more thought into what they're doing. There's no one picture for what asexuals are like. All it is sexual desire, is sexual attraction, really, and to some degree sexual desire. So just as if there's an unlimited number of ways that people are being gay men and lesbian women and non-binary bisexuals or whatever, there's a million ways of being asexual. And it doesn't necessarily mean one thing when it comes to how they are in the bedroom, how they behave in giving or receiving. Anything on that?
No, that's a really good point.
So this is the last question from here. What would you like partners of asexuals to know or to do?
Well, I think it's important, if you're confused or you don't know what to say or how to approach your spouse or your partner, is to, for one thing, you have to talk to them. There are other things out there. There are other tools. There's asexually.org has a whole section for partners, of asexual people. There are questions and threads and answers. And there are people to talk to. I've thought about starting a group on Facebook just for people to have somebody to talk to, that they could throw something. So sometimes I want to throw something at somebody and have them tell me the best way to say it to Suzanne, so that I don't hurt her. And it's not that I don't want to talk to her about it, because I do. I mean, we have really good communication. It's sometimes that fear stops me from saying something I might want to say. So there is support out there for you if you don't, if you don't know how to broach the subject. And like you said, every single one is different. I mean, asexuality, you have people who are repulsed by sex, all the way to the other end of the spectrum. So I think that you need to know that. I think communication is key. I think you need to know that it's not about yourself. It is what it is. And you need to accept that. And I think once I accepted that Suzanne is an asexual, then we could work out what that meant for us and how to help her become the best, blossom into the best person she is, the best asexual that she is. I always say that she put the A in asexuality. Say she's the best asexual I ever met. But but I also need to be the best sexual spouse to her. I need to be the best person to her and her to me. It's back and forth. It's all interwoven, and that comes down to communication. And I think that's really, really important. And I think intimacy, adding other layers of intimacy into your relationship, if you are the sexual person in an asexual relationship. We don't have to do that, because Suzanne is very intimate physically. I mean, she holds my hand, she kisses me. Some people are even repulsed by that. So you have to find other ways to become intimate. And I'm not just talking about physical. I'm talking about communication. I'm talking about doing things together. I'm talking about, complimenting each other and taking care of each other. There are so many different aspects of being intimate with somebody. And sometimes when the physical aspect changes a little bit and the other part of your intimate relationship isn't there, you feel it even more. We are blessed. Like, I think that we have a very intimate relationship, very honest, very trustworthy, very open, very spiritual, very emotional. We are so blessed. But I think that discovering those other aspects of intimacy is going to be important for you.
Yeah, and whoops, just banged the desk. This issue is something that I know you've been you've really focused on being understanding of me and supportive. And some of the resources I see online are very focused on supporting the asexual person. And that's wonderful, especially because if people have felt like they haven't had that in the past.
Right.
But it's also really important that the partner has support and understanding, and that I need to be aware of your views and sensitivities and vulnerabilities and fears. So it's really a two-way street. If you're asexual, please do work on both sides too, because it's like any other aspect of the relationship, really.
Right. And I would just like to say that you can have a very successful, wonderful relationship if one of you is, did you call it allosexual?
Allosexual.
And one of you is asexual. I'm here to tell you that I've never been happier in my whole life. And as Suzanne has entered into her asexuality and being who she is, and the planning and the communication, it's just drawn us closer. And when there is any kind of physical intimacy, it's better. I mean, I always joke with her. She says, "Are you missing something?" She says that to me all the time. I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" It's like I'm waiting to get that best present on Christmas. And when I do, it's fantastic. So you have to communicate, and you have to know it's possible. And you have to support each other in both ways.
Oh, and the last thing that I wanted to say was that one of the reasons that I put in the Sex with God entry about being honest with someone, if you are asexual, being honest, and you know it, being honest as early as possible, because particularly if you're not interested in having sex, the other person deserves to know. This, sex is a hugely important part of life, and it's not fair to go into a relationship and not divulge it. And if you do know, when you do find out, similarly, being honest about it and trying to work through it, because it's not fair to someone. They may not want to live their life in a relationship if you're not willing to have sex. I mean, it should be obvious, but I just thought I should say that.
Well, you also told me all along. You said things all along.
I joked before I knew.
Yeah,
I was joking on the real, I guess. Well, I think that's it. I don't think I saw any questions, but I'm just going to scroll
Peek
here.
up
Pardon
at
my
the
face getting huge here for a minute. Hello, everyone who is here.
We're peeking at seeing if there's any comments or questions. I
Yep,
think we're good.
I think that's it. Yep. So tomorrow, are we going to talk about being a non-binary gender identifier?
I think so.
Okay, so more insights into us. And are you guys getting bored with us? I mean, this week has been all about, oh, look at us, let's talk about us. Not the intention.
No,
however.
I think it's really important to talk about asexuality and all the letters in the acronym, because we're all unique and we all need to be accepted for who we are. And there are spouses of asexuals who don't know how to handle the situation or to enter into that. So I think it's important to talk about it. I think it's brave to say, I'm asexual, I'm queer, I'm gay, I'm lesbian. Whatever you are, I think it's brave right now because you are in a marginalized group. So you need to speak up. You need to be seen so people aren't afraid.
If you're safe.
If you're safe.
And if you're in the emotional space to be able to do it. Not everyone is, but if you can.
Right. Always come out when you're ready on your timing.
Yeah. And And, the process is coming out is not just a one-time thing.
There you go.
So tomorrow we're going to talk about the non-binary experience, non-binary gender experience, and we look forward to talking to you again. So you have a great day and happy Pride.
Happy Pride, everybody.
We'll see ya.